Hey everybody. Um, I'm smiling really because I finally got to the end of this Kindred series. So yes, I'm back, and I know I'm giving y'all like a genie kind of look. I'm washing clothes. I wish I was a genie so I could have three wishes that this FX Hulu series would disappear, never come back in a digital sphere for anybody to ever download and see again, and that whoever wrote it doesn't get another job for as long as they live. Okay, doing this kind of Hollywood stuff. Anyway, all right, so we're back for the Kindred miniseries review, episode 8, Alice. Okay, so it starts off in the right direction in the sense that it's named after a major character of the book who's actually a descendant of Dana. I can give y'all that, but we don't get much else after that. Okay, so then we get this scene that's giving real kind of precious old 70s black exploitation scene of a Brooklyn brownstone. Anyway, we get the scene with Olivia, the mother, who didn't exist in the book, with her mother-in-law, who also didn't exist in the book, who says that Reginald told me, who's apparently Olivia's husband, Dana's father, told me the news that you're expecting a child, that Reginald will be able to provide a good life for her and her grandson. So she's basically, Olivia, I guess, should be more grateful. Olivia essentially is saying that she had dreams, and for once he got out of medical school, what she was going to do with her own life, and she stops her and says, "He never deceived you. You're a mother, and he's a father. That's what you do. You make sacrifices." So the mother-in-law, of course, has to be a bitch and have no compassion because once again we're seeing the bad black mother because we can't get enough of that stereotype. And at this point, this is beyond insulting. It has no place with the book. To attach Octavia Butler's name and her genius to this trash is offensive to me. I've said it, I'll say it again because I don't like it. All right. Now, the mother in law tells Olivia, the made up, both of them being made up characters, um, tells her the problem is that she's too wild and to take it from somebody who knows better. So apparently, Olivia's mother just up and left her children. And I guess that's why Olivia, even though she disappeared into the 19th century via sci fi, wants nothing to do with Dana. It's just the passing down, once again, of the bad black mother. They're great mothers, however, and even if you notice in the miniseries, Olivia is appreciated for helping deliver children of Margie Wayland. Black women are great mothers when they're taking care of and supporting white women's children, not when they're taking care of their own. It's an old, dangerous stereotype, and it's the Mammy and the Jezebel contrast. Just get into your reading. Shout out to Patricia Hill Collins, all right? Shout out to Paula Giddings. Look these people up. Black women have been writing about this for a long time. And yet and still, we are still seeing the distortion of black women's images, even by a black man who adapted this for TV. Is he the only one? No. Did this have to be greenlighted by somebody? I'm sure. But what's done is done and your name is on it, sir. So yeah, I'm not here for it. Mm-mm. Nope. Don't like it. This is trash. So she's saying you have a chance to do better. Then she sends her on an errand to go get some chocolate bars, despite Olivia being pregnant, to run errands for her. Like, it's just weird. None of this shit makes any sense. It's choppy as fuck and it's wrong. Like, what the hell? So anyway, then we get Olivia riding the horse. This is how wild this shit is, okay? Olivia riding the horse, telling Dana she might save her life. She's talking as she's doing it, but Dana's not around. Like, she's talking. As Winnie runs back to the labor camp, or at least that's where we think she's running. Winnie, another made up character. In a sci-fi novel, did you really have to go around making up fake ass characters? It's a sci-fi novel. Trust me, it gave you everything you needed. Okay? And White Kevin can't catch her. Or apparently any other patroller that would normally catch slaves that were running and yelling that loudly. Okay, whatever. So Sarah is telling Dana that she needs to run off, and she needs to run off wherever she took Winnie when Winnie so-called disappeared. Sarah is not helpful. Okay, Sarah is basically coming off as the light-skinned bitch. No, seriously, that's what it's giving. The light-skinned bitch who judges other enslaved blacks on the labor camp, from Dana to Luke to whomever, and Winnie included. And the tension between Sarah and Dana did not happen like that in the book. She actually becomes a motherly figure to Dana and uses her place as sort of this relatively trusted house slave who's been raped by her master as a way to help whoever she can. She gives her the rundown. She helps protect her from saying or doing certain things to kind of know the dynamics that are available. Sarah was nothing but helpful, and Sarah damn sure wasn't no motherfucking tattletale. Okay, trying to keep her position in the house. If you don't get the fuck out of here, like these sort of distorted things that promote, this kind of unhealthy dynamic of, what people are now calling colorism. I feel like there's been a resurgence of the idea of colorism. I feel like since the rise of Black Lives Matter, and I feel like that is not that Black people haven't had those issues for centuries, but I feel like it's being given this mainstream sort of attention in a way to divide Black people further. And I just think we need to be cognizant of that. Just saying. All right. So and I'm saying that because when people watch this, they believe this shit, especially if they haven't read. Okay, that's why I'm making that point now. Anyway, so all of a sudden, Winnie gets some gusto about it. Okay, Winnie starts pulling a knife on Kevin, and I'm shocked. I said, Winnie, why are you doing this? And she's such a good white man in this series. Why are they letting this happen? Oh, right, because we can't talk about Black people's victimhood without us seeing a white man in a precarious situation, at least. So she's holding him hostage and she robs him of his clothes. So he comes back with a dress draped around his genitals. Okay. So, like, the one thing other enslaved people kept asking Dana in the actual book was, why was she dressed like a man? Because she was from 1970. She was wearing pants, which women didn't really do in the 19th century, despite having to do the same labor as men, so on and so forth. So I'm not understanding how this sort of clothing, looking like a man, gets misapplied to Winnie, a character who doesn't exist in the story, although there are plenty of other female major characters, including Alice, who this is named after but doesn't have many lines, who never existed in the book. Winnie doesn't even exist under another name. It's not like, oh yeah, I know that was Sarah. They just call her Suzanne in the miniseries. Like, it's nothing like that. Like, I don't understand why Winnie exists. I can't. So Kevin comes back to the house where Alice is dressed. Not Alice. Winnie's dress wrapped around his waist. Okay, so then Alice grabs a shotgun to protect the house. And, innocent white Kevin is told what to do by this child. Because that definitely happened in slave societies. White people would come to hide in using that loosely, Black people's homes. And the idea of a little Black girl holding a gun, and that's how they sit until Olivia comes back. If this was an attempt to try to show the agency of Black people, it failed. Because all it did was perpetuate this myth and stereotypes that are built out of slavery, that Black children they go from babies to adults. They don't get to be children. They don't get to make mistakes. So they do go from being babies to working on the labor camp. They go from being babies to being now people that can't be trusted. And therefore, not being trusted, being violent. And being more prone to violence than white children ever will be. Okay? So, and white people, and these Black kids are prone to violence without white supervision, like enslavement. So Kevin, of course, is shocked because he's a good white person. He wouldn't try to enslave anybody, but why does this 9-year-old have a gun? Boy, I tell you. So Sarah has a back and forth with Olivia in the cookhouse and saying, Olivia, well, you saved that redheaded heifer's babies. She, essentially Sarah had been trying to kill anything that Margie Wayland got pregnant with. And that was Margie's issue, is that Sarah unfortunately had pregnancies with babies carried to term and then sold off after being raped by her husband. And then Margie had trouble conceiving, and it perpetuated these jealousies. And in the book, that is essentially why Margie Wayland does not like Sarah. But Sarah never tried to kill her children. Okay, cut it out. All right, cut it out. All right. Actually, Sarah actually looks out for Dana because she knows of Margie's jealousy towards Black women, and getting to a point where she has moved past an age where she feels like Tom Whalen may regularly assault her. She's very protective of the other Black women on the labor camp. So this is why I'm saying I'm so offended by the way this is being depicted. Like, Black people aren't being shown as having any sort of care or protection for one another. Like, that bothers me. Because despite all the horrific things that are based in history that happen in Kindred, that's kind of the beauty of it. When you watch how black people are still looking out for each other. So now it's just so stereotypical, like the light skinned bitch, okay, who is hated by the white woman mistress for being kind of attracted to her enslaver. And we all know what must make her attractive is that she's lighter complexion, because we all know darker skinned slaves can't be pretty. But this is what I mean. This is the narrative that they're still perpetuating, even though it doesn't exist in the book, but it's not helping, okay? This is not for the culture. This is not for the movement. It's ahistorical. It's not based on a novel. Like, miss me. Like, cut it out. All right. And the light-skinned slave who was perpetually mean to the other, at least darker than her, enslaved individuals around her. This didn't happen in the book. This didn't. You learned about how careful and how subtle their behavior, and when I say they, I mean enslaved people's behavior, had to be, even to help each other. Because anything could lead to an act or be perceived as an act of insubordination to the white slave master, his wife, so on and so forth, and thus a violent reprimand, like a beating. So it's a miracle, I mean, in many ways, how many enslaved people in real life, how enslaved African Americans could develop any sense of community with this. Shout out to Ira Berlin's book, Many Thousands Gone. You should go and read it. It's a historical book, a work of fact in history. See, I read. So these things bother me when I see them misrepresented on TV, knowing that other people are not going to know what I know. And people are more likely to watch TV. And the people who wrote this had to actively get it wrong. So Sarah suggests where Dana may have hidden when Tom Whalen all of a sudden shows up at the door and walks up on the cookhouse. Olivia calls her a snake for essentially turning Dana in. Now, all of a sudden, Olivia wants to be a great mother and protect Dana, but only in the event that she's going to fall out with another black person, Sarah. Okay, so then we get this scene where Dana gets beaten by Tom Whalen for saying she could teach him how to read. Dana was beaten in the book. When she becomes enslaved, along with Alice, who also becomes enslaved, but Alice becomes enslaved more as an adult. Which roughly, 17, 18, you know how that goes. When Rufus takes over the labor camp. So then Olivia comes out of nowhere, Olivia, who doesn't exist in the book, and jumps on Tom Whalen for hurting her child. Now she cares, but once again, there's no character development, despite this character being created out of nowhere. We don't know what made her all of a sudden a mother who didn't care, who's taking care of somebody else's child, Alice, and then she jumps in to take care of Dana all of a sudden. Then, she shows up on the floor in her house, and we start back where we were from the beginning. All right. Now we're back in LA. The aunt has decided to call Uncle Allen. Uncle Allen, another one with no character development and who never existed in the book, the angry black man uncle, because we just can't imagine him anyway. This, once again, black people throughout this miniseries have no compassion for each other. That never existed in the book, and that's not real. It's not fucking real. Especially in terms of chattel enslavement. Miss me. Okay? He has no compassion for his niece or his black wife, because apparently he's not capable of any compassion. This is a really original depiction of a black man, by the way. Yeah. And we can't blame it on the time period of the book written, because Uncle Allen doesn't fucking exist in the book. And people were challenging these stereotypes in the 70s, black people especially. So to do this now is a level of willful ignorance that I just find absolutely unacceptable. Okay? All right. So anyway, so the police show up to Dana's house. Oh yeah, this is really original too. All right. They asked to come in and threaten to break down the door. Because her white neighbors have been calling the police on her. Now, this happens in real life. We know, and this can end up bad. Unfortunately, we saw this with Breonna Taylor, so on and so forth. So the police show up to Dana's house. They ask to come in and threaten to break down the door. She doesn't have to let them in. And anybody watching this video, please know that you do not have to let anybody in, even the police, to your property without a search warrant. Because it appears, I know, black people think, and some people really do think, that if I comply with the police, then I don't look guilty for something. So, yes, you can come into my home. You do not have to open the door for the police. They don't get to threaten. That is an illegal act. And that's what I mean. You watching this on TV, you might accidentally think, okay, if I'm just reasonable, then maybe that won't happen to me. No. The Karens of the world managed to get the police over there. Now that much is real, but it don't have shit to do with shit. Okay, in this case. Anyway, you don't have to do that. Anybody watching that, this is a real life. Okay. The Constitution, you don't have to do that. All right. So anyway, they're looking for drugs, and clearly, this is not domestic violence is not their concern. When they come in, because the police would have walked away, and we know that the police will do something like, we can't force it. We have to wait till he like almost kills you. When it comes to domestic violence, the protection of Black women, which doesn't happen legally. I mean, it doesn't really. They don't really come to white women's defense. If we're being honest, women in general, but it becomes an extra layer when you're Black. So then we get a scene with Kevin back at Olivia's house. He's there. He finally has on some man clothes. Okay. So they pull guns on him and wonder if he's behind the disappearance of Dana. Then Dana's back at the house with her aunt, the nurse. The aunt has now left the hospital and showed up at her house and found her and is asking what happened to her. And Dana says, I was whipped by Tom Whalen, and asked her aunt if she believes her story. The aunt says she doesn't want to, but she watched her disappear. The family she's completely estranged from in the book. Then Dana is crying to her aunt about how white Kevin is stuck in the 19th century after she promised she would not leave him. Okay, first of all, white Kevin in the book or in real 19th century America was not in any danger, and certainly not the kind in which she would have had to worry about his life. Okay? And Dana wasn't crying about his life in the book because he abandoned her to go and live 19th century white life. Okay? And travels the country and then realizes California doesn't exist yet, and somehow he eventually makes his way back to check on his wife. His wife. Not a chick he met at a restaurant, decided to give a ride to, then takes her old records to, basically because he can appreciate Black music in a way she can't. Like why? Why? I mean, why do this so badly? Like, what were y'all on? So she is crying over how she left the white man in this series that she's not even married to and does not know, except for a ride home with a complete stranger. Like, just miss me. So the only person that Dana in this miniseries has had a healthy relationship with, if you notice, healthy relationship of any sorts with, has been a white man who is essentially a stranger, and she has terrible relationships with every Black person around her. Did you notice that? Unhealthy ones, tense ones. That was not the Dana of Octavia Butler's creation in her brilliant novel of the historical fiction. Shame on y'all. Shame on Hulu FX. Shame on the person that adapted this for television. Shame on y'all, because you had to actively do this wrong. Then we get back to the scene where Dana is talking to her aunt, and her aunt says, well, check in the family Bible. All the James are listed in there. And this is how she realizes eventually that Rufus had a child with Alice. Alice, who he had an infatuation with from the time she was a child, and then makes her his slave and rapes her. But see, Rufus doesn't grow up in this series. This all on Tom Whalen, because we have to have good white people. So as long as we kept Rufus a child and him being relatively innocent and not looking at his character development in the book, when he starts to realize his power as a white man, as an enslaver, how he can exploit and abuse and rape Black women at his will, we don't see that. We don't see that. And it's when he tries to rape Dana that Dana pulls a gun out on him and kills him and manages. That's how she gets back to her life and doesn't get pulled back into history. That's the agency that Octavia Butler gave her. And you have to get to the end to realize that. Okay? So the series ends by them saying that the LAPD finds Olivia. Now, it's amazing to me that when Dana would return to her house, sometimes, I mean, for the most part, Kevin was with her. Her mother don't end up nowhere near her, but let me tell you something. The LAPD can sniff a Black person out. Can't they do it? All right. And Alan wants to know. Alan calls her with an attitude. I don't know what's going on. The LAPD has found Olivia. This, and then it's just like shock for the aunt. Okay. This is not a cliffhanger I care to see carried out. This was dumb. This whole series failed. It was choppy. It was sloppy. It was poorly done. And I said it a million times and I'll say it again. It was an unnecessary failure. Kindred, the novel, is the script. It's actually written that well. And you blew it. So please leave our black classics alone. And I'm talking to everybody, black, white, and otherwise. If you are not going to carry it out correctly, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Y'all be sure to like and subscribe. It was nice talking to you. Thanks for kind of sticking in there with me. Those of you who have even watched it. I just know that it's too important for me to kind of protect as much as I can as one individual the legacy of Octavia Butler and the integrity of her work. So y'all have a good weekend. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.